The air in the living room hummed with a heat that clung to my skin, thick and restless as shadows draped us in a velvet haze. I could blame the liquor, its slow burn pulsing through me, loosening every inhibition. But the truth was Jasper, sprawled in the recliner beside me, his presence a magnetic ache I couldn't ignore. My body thrummed with it, a craving sharpened by the way his leg brushed so close, the faintest whisper of hair grazing my arm where I knelt by the coffee table. We'd been drinking all night, laughter fading into a charged silence, the kind that begs for something to break it. His legs stretched out on the recliner's footrest, lazy and inviting, and I felt the pull. Reckless. Urgent. I leaned in, lips hovering over the taut curve of his calf, then pressed down, a slow, deliberate kiss that sent a jolt through me. His warmth seeped into me, the faint tickle of hair against my mouth igniting a hunger I hadn't named until now. He didn't stir, and that stillness only fueled me. I kissed him again, deeper this time, letting my lips linger, tasting the salt of his skin as my breath quickened. My hand slid to his knee, fingers trembling with daring, tracing the firm line of his thigh. Each inch I ventured higher stoked the fire in me, a slow tease of discovery, until my touch grazed something soft, heavy, alive. I froze, pulse racing, then pressed on, feeling the weight of him, the heat, the sheer power beneath my fingertips. It was dizzying, a secret unfurling in the dark. Jasper had always been everything I wasn't, lean where I softened, bold where I hesitated, a flame drawing every eye while I lingered in the glow. Yet he'd never dimmed me, his steady presence a tether through years of longing I'd buried deep. Now, with my hand exploring him, that longing roared to life, raw and consuming. He shifted then and I braced for the fallout, rejection, ruin. Instead, his hand moved, lazy and deliberate, freeing himself to the air. My breath caught as he offered more, and I took it, fingers wrapping around him, stroking with a reverence that made him harden under my touch. He was overwhelming, long, thick, a quiet strength that pulsed against my palm. The need clawed at me, sharp and unrelenting. I needed him closer, needed to taste him, to feel him claim every sense I had. Rising to my knees, I moved as the recliner's footrest lowered with a soft thud, an invitation, a dare. In the faint light, I saw him fully, striking, flawless, a vision that demanded worship. Our eyes locked, his gaze flickering with something dark and knowing, and I answered it, leaning in to envelop him in a slow, searing heat. He filled me, his scent, his warmth, the way he pressed against every edge of my awareness. My hands roamed as I surrendered, teasing, tasting, losing myself in the rhythm of him. His fingers found my hair, threading gently at first, then gripping tight, guiding me with a force that sent shivers racing down my spine. The world shrank to this, to the pull of his hands, the pulse of him against me, the electric edge of giving in completely. I broke away just long enough to whisper, voice raw, "Tell me." His answer was a shift, a spark of wildness. His grip tightened, urging me back, and the pace surged, urgent, unrelenting, a dance of heat and need that left me breathless. It built, spiraled, then crashed over me in a rush, sharp, searing, a flood I welcomed wholly. When it stilled, I lingered, pressing a final tender touch to him before retreating to the couch. Silence fell, thick with the echo of what we'd shared. I lay there, his taste still alive on me, a quiet fire that carried me into sleep. That night with Jasper, its shadowed heat, its unspoken pull, burns in me still, a memory that outshines all else. Sleep didn't dull the fire. It simmered beneath my skin, restless and alive as I woke to the dim gray of dawn creeping through the blinds. The living room was still heavy with last night's shadows, the air thick with the scent of him, earthy, intoxicating, a trace that clung to me like a second skin. I shifted on the couch, my body humming with the memory of Jasper's heat, the way he'd unraveled me without a word. He was still there, sprawled in the recliner, one arm draped over the side, his chest rising slow and steady. Even in sleep he radiated that effortless pull, muscles taut beneath his shirt, legs splayed in a way that dared my eyes to linger. I couldn't look away. The curve of his thigh, the faint shadow where fabric stretched tight, beckoned me back to the edge we'd crossed. My fingers twitched, aching to trace him again, to feel that pulse of power beneath my touch. I sat up, breath shallow, caught in the pull of him. The silence was a tease, every creak of the couch a whisper against the stillness. I wondered if he felt it too, the echo of my lips on his skin, the way I'd worshipped him in the dark. Did it linger in him like it did in me, a current that refused to fade? My gaze drifted lower and heat flared in me, sharp and sudden as I remembered the weight of him, the way he'd hardened under my hands, my mouth, surrendering to me even as he claimed me. I stood, drawn closer despite myself, bare feet silent on the floor. The space between us shrank, and with it, my restraint. I stopped just short of him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his skin, to catch the faint musk of him that made my pulse stutter. My hand hovered, trembling with the urge to reach out, to slide along the line of his leg again, to reignite that wildfire. I imagined waking him with a touch, slow, deliberate. My fingers slipping beneath the fabric, finding him soft at first, then coaxing him back to life. He stirred then, a low hum escaping his throat, and I froze, caught in the thrill of being seen. His eyes fluttered open, heavy-lidded, locking onto mine with a gaze that pierced through the haze. It wasn't shock or anger there, just a flicker of something dark, something that mirrored the ache in me. His lips parted, a breath slipping out, and I felt it like a caress down my spine. Neither of us spoke, but the air crackled, thick with what we hadn't said, what we still wanted. I sank to my knees beside him, drawn by that unspoken pull, my hand finding his thigh before I could stop it. His muscle tensed beneath my palm, a quiet flex that sent a shiver racing through me. I didn't dare look away, didn't dare break the thread of heat stretching between us. My fingers slid higher, slow and teasing, brushing the edge of where I'd been before, where I longed to go again. His breath hitched, a sound so faint it nearly undid me, and I felt him shift, subtle, inviting, giving me more. The room seemed to pulse with us, every shadow a witness to the tension coiling tighter. I leaned closer, my lips hovering just above his skin, tasting the air between us, warm, charged, alive. I could feel him watching, feel the weight of his gaze as I pressed a single, lingering kiss to his inner thigh, soft and deliberate. His hand moved then, slow and sure, threading through my hair, not pulling, just resting there. A claim, a question, a promise. I looked up, meeting that stare, and the hunger in it mirrored mine, raw, unshaken, endless. My hand tightened on him, fingers daring further, grazing the heat I craved, and his grip in my hair tightened just enough to make my breath catch. Time stretched, suspended in that moment, as the world narrowed to the press of my skin against his, the thrum of want that bound us. "Eli," he murmured, voice rough with sleep and something deeper, and it was a spark to dry tinder. My name on his lips, low, unguarded, sent a rush through me, a wave of heat that pooled low and insistent. I didn't answer with words. I didn't need to. I leaned in again, letting my breath fan over him, letting my touch speak where my voice couldn't. The morning stretched on, and we stayed there, locked in that dance of heat and shadow, each touch a thread weaving us tighter. Jasper, his scent, his strength, his silent pull, held me captive, and I gave myself to it, willingly, wholly, chasing that edge we'd found and refused to let go.